Hello, this is Deborah Cohen, a story and a song podcast. And I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about today, but I think that seeing it's the Jewish New Year after Rosh Hashanah, and we've wiped our slates clean if we're honest with each other and ourselves and with God, then we realize that words do matter. So that old elementary school saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me, is totally not true. I don't know who said that, but obviously they had a tough outer shell than those of us who are called neurodivergent beings. And it is not a popular term, but worth addressing because people that are neurodivergent are told they're too sensitive. And I always accounted it to, just because I'm a musician, we're told as artists that we wear our hearts on our sleeves, but there's a deeper meaning to what this actually means. And I'd like to share it with you so that if you do have a friend or a relative or a coworker or whoever, a lover that is very sensitive to not only words, but maybe surroundings, entertainment, then, maybe she's not a prude. Maybe she's actually neurodivergent. And you need to be attentive and understanding to people like me who wear our hearts on our sleeves. You're responsible. We're responsible for each other in this world as human beings. And further, pseudoscience shows what happens to a crystal, a water crystal under a microscope. It responds to words. And I'm going to share with you a slide of a crystal that responds to somebody speaking nice things to it, and then a water crystal that responds to somebody speaking rude, harsh, hateful things. And in this culture, America, there are a lot of people in the United States, college age, every age, that say nasty things to other people, about other people, to animals, to the world, that don't realize the power of their words. Maybe they do and they're using them hatefully. We don't want to be doing that to each other, really. We don't. And you're not just to blame. It's the media, the entertainment that we watch that teaches children that it's fun to kill people. It's fun to murder. It's fun to do nasty things. And, once upon a time, I grew up in the day and age when the Three Stoogers, not Stoogers, I'm from Boston and I put R's where they don't belong. It's not Stoogers. It's not idea. It's Anyway, okay. So the Three Stooges were on the hot plate at one time for being considered violent. Seriously. So we've graduated from the Three Stooges to these video games that murder and kill and do war, and all under the umbrella of entertainment. Come on, people. This is not right. Wake up. So if this interests you, I hope it does, then stick around for the next 30-ish minutes and I'll do a deeper dive into why is she or he too sensitive. I'll be right back after this message. A Story and a Song podcast by Deborah Cohen. Interfaith music. Every Sunday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Books, music, singing for life. How songs elevate in praise. deeper mysteries of the soul for all creation. It's the golden age of praise, singing from your heart and your soul, music, stories, and merch, of course, on Amazon. A story and a song about life. And again, this is Deborah Cohen. I thank you for joining me. If you're watching me live, I'm broadcasting on my YouTube channel, and I think I'm on at Energy LifeWave today. I have a health, longevity, and health channel, as well as a music channel, for I am a group fitness instructor and a cantorial soloist of sorts. Or I'm also on Instagram. I think my channel is As Life Happens, DOTORG, because life does happen. And let me put something in the chat that tells people that are coming in what we're talking about. Talking about water crystals that respond to words. Okay. All right. So I'd like to start out, if you're looking at this video, you can see the name of the book, The Hidden Messages of Water. And I got this like maybe 2 decades ago when I started to wonder, when people started saying, "You're too sensitive." I'm like there's something wrong with me. Oh, excuse me, hiccup. And I thought, no, I'm not too sensitive. You're insensitive. But who's right and who's wrong in this situation? Well, I never heard it explained to me that there's such a term as neurodivergent, which would describe me. And instead of putting me in a box and saying, well, you're just an artist and, we know you wear your heart on your sleeve, so you're excused. No, take the time to understand different personality traits when you're like living in a world with other people, unless you're what I do sometimes, prefer the life of a hermit. But that's not healthy for anybody. What do they say in the some song? No man is an island, or no woman is an island. All right, we're meant to be together, but who wants to be with hateful, hurtful people? None of it. I mean, I don't. Unless you're hateful, hurtful yourself, then you look for people that are the same way. And there's plenty of them. They're called bullies. And this is not a new phenomenon. I had to deal with bullies in my own lifetime as a teenager in high school. Anyway, I'll put it in my book someday. Anyway, okay, so let's get on with it. This book has the potential to profoundly transform your worldview using high-speed photography. Dr. Masaru Emoto discovered that crystals formed in frozen water reveal changes when specific, concentrated thoughts are directed toward them. Thoughts! So that goes into, like, I can be around a group of people, and maybe you can too. You can pick up their vibes. I'm like, ooh, these people are not that somebody I want to be around, And, okay, so anyway, he found that water from clear springs and water that had been exposed to loving words show brilliant, complex, and colorful snowflake patterns. In contrast, polluted water, or water exposed to negative thoughts, forms incomplete, asymmetrical patterns with dull colors. So the implications of this research create a new awareness of how we can positively impact the earth and our own personal health. So this picture on your left, it is a photograph of somebody that spoke good words. We showed words meaning thank you in different languages, always resulting in crystals that were beautiful and complete. That's on your left. So that's a beautiful picture of a snowflake. Whereas on your right, let's get my fingers going the right way here. Your right, I will look in the book on the same, this is page 8 on your right. When words that indicated harm to humans were shown to the water, no crystals formed. It even appears that the words, quote, "You make me sick," end quote, created the shape of a man with a gun. Think about it. Think about what you're saying, people. And this is like, according to this author, you don't have to say the word, you just have to think it. And, I, as an empathic personality, can tell what somebody's thoughts are. I don't know the exact words, but I can tell when they don't like me. Maybe you can too. And, we want to find people that are kind. And that I did a video earlier this year about kindness. I encourage you to go to it. All right, now I would like to continue on with this and take it a step deeper. I encourage you to get this book and really consider improving, as we all want to grow, right? We grow in yesterday's fertilizer. In other words, you don't want to stay the same person you were yesterday unless you're, letting the grass grow under your feet. We're here on a mission, all of us. And yes, we have to deal with obstacles. And those obstacles are most of the time put in our path to help us to grow, not to get stagnant, but to grow. All right, so get this book, The Hidden Messages in Water by Masaru, Masaru Emoto, Emoto. Definitely worth it this year. Put it on your book list. Let's take this a step further and talk about neurodivergence. It's a term used to describe individuals who experience significant differences in brain function and processing compared to the general population. It encompasses a range of conditions. So before you start criticizing people and saying they have mental problems, maybe you might want to look at what kind of people struggle with this kind of personality. People with ASD, also known as autism. People with ADHD, attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder. People with dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and Tourette's syndrome. Neurodivergence is not a medical diagnosis, but rather a descriptive term that highlights the unique ways in which these individuals perceive and interact with the world. It emphasizes that their differences are not deficits and not disabilities, but rather variations in brain function that can result in different strengths, challenges, and perspectives. It's important to note that neurodivergence is a spectrum, and individuals may experience these differences to varying degrees. Some may have significant challenges, like dyslexic people, the letters switch, that's a frustrating thing, while others may experience only subtle differences. Additionally, neurodivergence can co-occur with other conditions, such as mental health disorders. The concept of neurodiversity promotes acceptance and understanding of these differences, recognizing that neurodivergent individuals contribute valuable perspectives and talents to society. All right. How do you tell if you are neurodivergent? You cannot tell if you are neurodivergent just by yourself, as it requires a formal diagnosis from a professional. But you can look for some common signs and do a self-reflection to see if it's worth pursuing a diagnosis. Common indicators include differences in social interaction, sensory sensitivities like to light, sound, smell. And I'll give you an example. These are called hypersensitive people. When I used to live in this apartment in Georgia, It was a beautiful apartment. It had high ceilings with beams, but there were spider webs up there in the beams. And so I contacted the manager and I said, we have some kind of spiders up there. We need to get rid of them, please. So unbeknownst to me, when I went to work, I came home and the air conditioning was on in the hot summer. Well, I didn't have it on full blast, but when I came home, it was on full blast. And I thought, wonder why. Maybe somebody must have been in my apartment for a reason, So I just dismissed it in my mind. Well, went to sleep that night, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I couldn't breathe. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? So I had to go to the hospital and found out I had been exposed to microencapsulated pesticide. It had closed my airway, and I ended up with COPD and asthma. Now, I was able to overcome those major symptoms, the infracted airway, the asthma. I had 2 inhalers, and I got so discouraged because I was making my first album, and I'm like, I can't sing. But I was left with hypersensitivity to smell. So, for example, when I used to go to a church, there would always seem to be an old lady sitting in front of me that smelled like mothballs. And I'm like, I'd like gag. And like today, in this lifetime of today, my neighbor likes to use scented dryer sheets. And every time they run their dryer, I have to, it makes me gag. And, if you didn't know what a neurodivergent was, you'd think, is this person neurotic? Well, so the solution is when they come, they're a snowbird. I live in Florida. So when they come down this year, I bought some unscented dryer sheets, and I'm going to explain to them what neurodivergent is and ask them if they would kindly use unscented dryer sheets, because I suffered all last year while they were here. Every time they did the laundry, I'm like, oh my God, I can't breathe. It's terrible. All right, so common indicators include differences in social interaction, sensory sensitivity that I just explained, difficulties with focus or organization, and my husband deals with ADHD, intense interests, and challenges with routines or changes in plans. All right. So what we need to know is we need to understand ourselves and other people when trying to communicate with other people. If I didn't know, I'm not saying if, I honestly didn't know that I was a neurodivergent personality. And when people would say that I was too sensitive, I didn't know how to respond to that, because they were saying it in a tone as if there's something wrong with me. But actually, there's nothing wrong. It's just the way that I am. And that T-shirt that says, you be you and me be me. I mean, I need to get it for myself. I actually designed a T-shirt, which you can get with those very words on it on Amazon. You can look for it on Amazon by doing a search for my music, Deborah, Debra Cohen, Cohen music, and scroll down at the bottom of my Amazon page and you'll see my merch. Look for You Be You. If it doesn't come up that way, just type in You Be You and Me Be Me and see if you can find it that way. So I just want to encourage people to be kinder to one another, to try to understand another person means that you need to listen. Your mind might be saying, based on your own filter, well, this person is a screwball. But that's because you don't understand me, Or let's see, what's else? Okay. Here are some social and emotional differences. Difficulty understanding or catching social cues. Feeling socially drained or awkward in groups. Yes. heightened emotions or difficulty managing or regulating your own emotions. Struggling with literal interpretations or understanding. Sarcasm. That's another one that gets me into trouble. I don't like sarcasm. I had a mother that was extremely sarcastic, so that made me hypersensitive to hurtful words. And, she just said, just get over it. Just get over yourself. And I'm like, why do you have to say such cruel things? You're so sarcastic. And then in high school, we had to read Mark Twain, and the teacher was saying his writing technique was incredible. It was so sarcastic. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to like him right off the bat. And then, Mark Twain supposedly was a drunk. And I'm like, I don't really care for drunks. My stepfather was a drunk, and he did nasty things. So, people, anyway. This is the same English teacher, by the way, when we were learning about, who's that female poet? Emily Dickinson. She had some kind of a inappropriate crush on a pastor, and she used to lock herself in her room, talk about a hermit, and write this poetry that I didn't like it at all. But my English teacher, English professor, this was actually college, she wanted us to do a paper on interpreting Emily Dickinson poetry. And I said, well, what do you mean by interpreting? Can I write down what I think about the poetry, or what it makes me feel like? And she said, no, I want you to interpret the poem according to what I tell you it means. And so I protested and said, well, that's not my interpretation. And she said, well, you can write what you want, but if you don't write what I say that Emily Dickinson is saying, you're going to get a 0. Can you believe that? Oh, there's so many narrow-minded people out there. Okay, so, all right, getting on, symptoms of a hypersensitive soul. Being overly sensitive or undersensitive to stimuli like light, sound, touch, smell. Smell's a big one for me. If they have attention and focus differences, they have difficulty focusing on tasks that are not interesting. Or if somebody's talking, I call it small talk. If you're talking small talk, if you really are discerning, you can see that I start to get the glazed over look. I'm like, I am trying to focus on what they're saying, but it's so... Oh, we used to say, gag me with a spoon. I'm like, get me out of here. I'm like, oh my God, I just can't stand it. I start feeling like I'm in a cage. Okay. Difficulty with executive functioning, such as planning, organizing, I don't have a problem with organizing. Behavioral and routine differences, needing and finding comfort in routines. Yes, I like routine. I don't like things that are spontaneous, although I am spontaneous. But, if we have a set plan on how to do something and then you do something different, like say, for example, I give you a plot plan because, musicians that play out and perform, they have to provide a plot plan for venues to know where to set things up, so when I get on the bema or the stage or the pulpit or whatever it is, things are the way that I requested in the plot plan. The microphone is here, and this amp will be here, and this chair will be here. Well, some sound people don't do that. They think they're going to have a better plot plan, and that's not the one I asked for. If I am the guest, you need to accommodate me because that's the way it's supposed to work. So if you put the plot plan different than I requested because you think it's better for you, now it's not better for me. It's better for you. And that really, what do they say? That pushes a button. That pushes my button. So what button am I talking about? what's the word again? This is new for me. Neurodivergent. All right. So let's see one more time. So what should I do with myself when I'm like this? Or maybe you're like this and you're saying, I'm like this, Or the person is simply cruel and they don't know they're cruel. Okay, well, if you don't know you're cruel, then maybe you need to speak to water and look at it under a microscope and see what it looks like. And that'll tell you whether you're cruel or not. Self-reflection. Take time to think about your own experiences, strengths, and challenges. Consult a professional. Well, I would have to trust the person, because there's a lot of people out there in their professions that have no compassion and care for human beings. They're in it for the money, honey. And you don't want to see those kind of people, because they're going to string you along and you're not going to get any better. Or you could take online quizzes. They can be helpful screening tool to see if you might have traits associated with neurodivergence, but they cannot provide a diagnosis. So I do know a neurodivergent person on Facebook, and I wish I could help her. But maybe sharing this with her will encourage her to find ways to explore how to cope with being a neurodivergent. And for those of you that are cruel, if you have any measure of compassion in you, look at ways to help people that are neurodivergent and try to make this world a better place, please. It's time to clean up our acts and stop being so divisive in our words. We don't want to be exactly like each other. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we need to learn how to be nice to each other. And that, for some people, is a really hard thing to do. I hope this has helped you, and I hope if you want to share it with somebody that this would help, please do. I will put this video archived on YouTube, on my channel. I think it's on @JewishRockMusic or @EnergyLifeWave. I have 2 different YouTube channels. And don't forget to check out my music, DeborahCohenMusic.com. Until we meet again, I wish you peace, salam, and shalom.